Hi, everyone. We're here today with Doctor's Corners, and we have Angela Pickering from Evolution Eggs. She's on here with us to talk about her organization. It's a new one. It's just been this year or so. So she'll dive right into it, telling us about Evolution Eggs and her whole process.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
Thanks for having me. So Evolution Eggs was started this year. It was created off of my surrogacy program that I've been doing for almost 6 years. But there was a need for another egg donor program that perhaps did things a little differently. So we decided that it was time this year to kind of branch off, do the program so we could offer an all-inclusive thing for all of our couples who needed both egg donation and surrogacy. And we do obviously help people who just need egg donor, but the main portion of the program was to really facilitate a kind of a one-stop shop for people to be able to come and get everything they need in one place and not have to stress about kind of vetting and screening a whole bunch of different places to do different things.
No, that's great. I mean, there's definitely a need for it, and I'm glad that you filled it. We do have a few questions. So how do you make sure your egg donors are dedicated to donating?
So we have a really stringent process that was kind of created right out of the hop, where they do a consult with me. We go through all of the obvious things, discuss the commitment piece, which is a big part. You know, have they talked to people about being a donor? Have they got supports? Have they got someone that could possibly travel with them and or make sure that they're, you know, getting back from the retrieval safely to a hotel or to home? And to really understand well what they are committing to. And that means, you know, saying this is maybe a 10 to 14 day process, but there's months of pre-screening and leading up to that. And the other thing we've kind of put in place to ensure that they're committed is a very rigorous screening process ahead of matching. So that entails, you know, seeing a doctor, taking requisitions, having the screening done if you're local in Ontario to one of our clinics that we work with, that we partnered, which is Tripod, and they help us do all of our pre-screening. That includes, you know, infectious disease, their blood panels, that include, you know, urine drug screening. It includes genetic carrier screening, so that we have a really good overall makeup, you know, hormones. We're obviously checking AMH, and then we do an antral follicle count ultrasound. So we try as much as possible to get all of this stuff done ahead. Now, as we've been building up the database, it will get easier because now after they've been screened once, then that is good for subsequent donations, other than maybe just some repeat blood work. So once we have genetic carrier screening, it doesn't have to be repeated. So it's just sort of the initial, you know, getting the initial donor database built up, and then really having that understanding that as they go through this pre-screening stuff, how committed to it are they? It's very easy in the beginning when we realize, okay, we can't get a hold of a donor, or they don't seem to be getting their screening done, or, you know, they're not following up with us, then we just remove them. It's that simple. So if we don't see that great communication in the beginning, or, you know, that flow through isn't happening, or they're not getting their screening done, we just tell them, like, until you're fully committed to this, we can't have you on the database. So sometimes we see someone go on the database and they seem to be very, you know, excited about it, and then see them come off the database because we don't have much tolerance, because it's really people's emotions and money. When intended parents come and they need a donor, we expect that they will not take advantage of the fact that there is a lot that they are putting into this. And of course, that pre-screening does help us be able to determine whether they're qualified.
Right. Okay, no, a lot of good information. As a person who will be receiving eggs, how do I know that the egg donor I select is qualified to donate?
So that is, again, it's part of the screening process to get as much done as possible. There's good indicators. So one of the good indicators is AMH and antral follicle. So we try and get hormones. So AMH is a hormone that shows us sort of the potential of an egg donor's donation and how well they will do. So we're sort of looking for within a certain range for it to be. And antral follicle actually is an ultrasound that shows how many follicles, which is sort of the sac that holds the egg, how many follicles in each ovary a donor might have during the month. That's not to say, it won't change, because obviously once they're, on medications, that can be tweaked. But it's a good indication. So having those tests done is what we try to do. Now, we can't always do that ahead of time. I know that no other program, no other agency who's doing this is doing any of this stuff. So for us, it's 1 foot forward to be able to tell intended parents that they are very likely able to use this donor. But like anything, there are some risk factors. And so if we have a donor, say out east, and we've realized this, it's very difficult to get anything done fertility wise in the eastern provinces. So we are having to fly them in to get that. And it's part of it at the cost and basically intended parents just pay for the flight. They come into the clinic, they do all their screening in one day. And then we hope for the best. I mean, the chances are it'll all work out as long as the pre-screening is done. So we look at her overall, things like being a smoker, is she a drug user, how much alcohol use. We look at genetics. So right away we ask questions about their personal health, regular cycles, and their overall health themselves, that would kind of outline what, superficially would look like a good donor. And then we have to investigate inward, and that's generally how things start.
Okay. No, that's very interesting. I'm glad you're able to provide all that help for anyone who's interested.
It is time consuming. I know people will be like, oh, where's the donor? But I think realizing that in the very beginning, it does take time. It takes months, but we have an expectation the donor isn't going to sit for months. She's going to get it done. So if there's something holding it up, or she can't get to blood work, whatever, we just want that good communication to say, hey, sorry, I couldn't get to the clinic to get this done. I wasn't feeling well or whatever. So as long as the communication is there, we understand. But if, we start to see it's a month and it's another, and it's not getting done, then we have to have those conversations. But, and I think too, once that database is full of people who are already screened, then flowing forward in the years to come, they'll be experienced donors. They've already had donations, or they've already been completely pre-screened. And then it'll be a much quicker process to have them flow through. And we do track all of our donors. So we have a really detailed tracking system for all their donations, how many eggs are retrieved, how many fertilize, how many end up at 5-day blast and or are PGTA tested and are euploid embryos. So we do track this. Now, obviously it would, depending, the sperm has to do with a lot of how that does unfold, but we track it so that in subsequent donations, we have those detailed records in order to be able to share with intended parents who want the donors who have actually done this before.
Okay, great. So are most of the egg donors open or anonymous?
Yes, so all of our egg donors are open. It's not to say that they couldn't be anonymous, but when we do these initial consults, there is a great discussion about what that means. And so sometimes people will fill it anonymous on the initial consult, and then I'll ask them if they really understand. And I think what it is, mostly when they fill it anonymous, they say they don't want to have anything to do with the subsequent child down the road. So they don't actually, they're all very open and keen to know who they're donating for. They don't necessarily want to have contact with them, but they just, and we have a question on our application that discusses, would they be open to any contact with the child after 18 years old? So we kind of go through all of those things. And in the end, all of our donors have decided they want to be open, in that what it legally means is that their name is given. We don't have to keep all documents and clinical files anonymous. They are assigned an ID number always, but once that they're, they've expressed that they're okay with being known, then we kind of try and line up intended parents with donors that make the most sense. If I have intended parents who are like, I would love to work with a donor, I'm perfectly okay with them knowing who I am, but we don't necessarily want to talk to them or have communication with them, then I just make sure that the donor's okay with that. It's just a lining up of what everyone's expectations are. But all of our donors are open and want to know at least who they're donating to.
Okay.
So far, anyway.
So, so many questions are coming up all the time, I'm sure, but we've covered.
Well, and I forgot to mention, after or sometimes during my consultation, we have a nurse. So Melanie Mitchell, who has been working with us for years, she's an IVF nurse, and we actually have her do a medical consult too. So in the very initial parts of someone applying, we actually have her go through medication, side effects, the entire process, everything from what start to finish the expectations are, but also in finer detail, the actual egg donation process itself, so that it's not just willy-nilly and they go, oh, I didn't know I had to do injections, or I didn't know I had to do this. So Melanie goes through that, and then Melanie writes a report for me that I'm able to read and make sure we've got everything. And then that goes to the clinic that ends up having, wherever the intended parents are matched and working with, we send those things along. So the idea is the clinic has less to do. The clinic doesn't have to chase the donor. They don't have to, that's because it's essentially the agency's job. And I know there's a lot of conflicting views about this, but the agency's job is to make sure that the donor is prepared, that she is giving informed consent, that she does understand what she's committing to, and that she does understand the process. Because, if I were a donor and nobody told me I had to do injections, and I had to do injections for 2 weeks, I'd be like, what? And or that I had to fly in for, whatever, depending on where the clinic is. Then that's information that they need to know. So we try and make sure that the donors don't go, ooh, that was a surprise. Because that's upsetting for everybody. And that's where we try and partner up with the clinics to say, look, this is what we do. We will send over a medical consult. We will send over, a medical referral, a match sheet. It'll have everything you need to know. And we send over all of the medical information that we have obtained during our pre-screening.
Right. No, that's very helpful. You need that kind of process in front of you. So there's no surprises, and everyone is enjoying,
Not a fan of surprises.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Take care. Bye.